Good morning. On behalf of Staff Development Committee of Business Studies Department, I welcome Head of the Department, Dr. Habiba Ma'am, Head of the Sections, and my dear colleague in the webinar on Strategies for an Entrepreneurial Career. The COVID-19 emergency has made a global economic crisis of unprecedented magnitude. However, not all the evils come to harm. According to Human Science Research Council report, COVID-19 has created 55 multi-billion dollar business opportunities. Many entrepreneurs took a chance to embark on the startups to catch up these opportunities. With the wave of innovation, businesses like COVID-19 home care products, COVID-19 healthcare products, medical masks, gloves, gowns, face shields, and many technological innovations such as artificial intelligence, blockchain are flourishing in the present scenario. Today's webinar will focus on the strategies for an entrepreneurial career. And to enlighten on this emerging topic, we have invited Mr. P. Chandrasekhar for this session. A special welcome to Mr. Chandrasekhar, sir. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. It is indeed a great privilege and pleasure to have you here. Before we proceed to the webinar, may I request Dr. Nitya to introduce our guest speaker.
A very good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's guest. Mr. P. Chandrasekhar is a Group General Manager of Javed Sultan Group of Companies, whose business presence ranges from luxury brand retailing, mall development, mass entertainment, tours, travels and hospitality, investment and property management. A postgraduate in commerce, chartered accountant, and a company secretary from India, and ASA member of CPA Australia. His total experience in the field of corporate finance, business strategies, business planning, and accounting spans over 3 decades, both in India and Oman. He has a wide exposure to corporate finance.
All the participants are requested to post their comments in the query section. The queries will be addressed at the end of the session. So I request Mr. Chandrasekhar, sir, to commence this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, the faculty members of Ibra College of Technology, part of University of Technology and Applied Sciences. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be with you, all of you, in your midst this morning. Of course, one has to be alive to the technical glitches what we are facing, because it's something which we cannot do anything about it. But what's more important is that we are connected virtually. That makes all the more interesting in terms of talking to all of you. I would like to start by saying Honorable Dr. Habiba Mohammed Saeed Al Mugairi, Head of the Department, other members of the faculty of the college, dear students, guests, and other participants who are virtually connected to this particular webinar. Thank you very much for joining. When Dr. Nitya asked me to speak on the subject of entrepreneurship, I was very happy. And also a bit unsure. You may wonder what is happening here, whether I'm happy at the same time not so very sure about it. Because I don't know whether I would be in a position to do justice to this, because I'm not a member of the academia, although I'm a practitioner. But then I said, let me make an attempt and then give my own perspective by virtue of my long years of experience, both in India as well as in the Oman in the Middle East. And I also travel quite a bit across the world in different parts. But personally, over the years, I have convinced myself that I'm a great advocate of free trade enterprise across the world. Now, one may wonder, what is it all about? Free trade enterprise is basically the cornerstone for entrepreneurship. Globally, there are recognized examples of local industrial and skill development. In recent times, one cannot think of any other country which has successfully practiced what I call it as directed entrepreneurship. Now, this is not a term which is used in the academic journal or books or something like that. This is my own coinage, so possibly you must excuse me for my coinage. Directed entrepreneurship is coming out of none other than China. You know, over the last about 3.5 decades, more than close to about 40 years or so, they have successfully perfected this example in the model, and they have sort of created hubs where different types of industrialization has happened. Now, massive amount of industrialization has happened. They have created hubs for manufacturing expertise. And entrepreneurial hubs were matched only by availability of cheap financing, massive subsidization, etc., etc. Now, not to be left behind, there are several countries across the world that are fast catching up on this massive industrial and skill development. One of the recent examples, what we can think of is India, which has set up the Make in India initiative. And then today we are seeing that there are two major automobile companies which are already set up shops out here in Tamil Nadu, in Maharashtra, and elsewhere in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh and all that. Then we have iPhone, is planning to sort of set up a shop over there. Xiaomi, which is the biggest Chinese manufacturer of phones, is also set up a shop over there. Now what does all this say? This basically the government or the policymakers are trying to give a fillip to entrepreneurial spirit of the people so that the industrial development and the skill development can happen. Now, see, there are lots of examples in the Southeast Asia. We can see in Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Philippines. Now, most important, we should not forget where we are staying. That is the Vision 2040 of the government of Oman. Now, what is the underpinning strategy of 2040? 2040 says there is a public-private partnership. Now, what is public-private partnership? Private partnership means entrepreneurial spirit. So again, the government of Oman is also laying a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurial spirit to be blossomed and to a great extent. And I think this is the right time to discuss the most important element of entrepreneurship. And I am in front of you to discuss whatever little that I can share with you people. So with this, I would like to go to my presentation. I must actually compliment the teaching faculty who have basically dissected this presentation into 4 different subjects. That is, one is strategies to build career as entrepreneurs. And they have also talked about innovative business ideas and opportunities. And of course, in order to sort of get those innovative ideas and business ideas or opportunities into fruition, you need to make a successful business plan because not all the businesses flourish with own funds. So you need to go for borrowed funds. So you need to go for private equity or maybe venture capital and things like that. Now, are we resting at that? No. I think the most important thing is the role of teachers in instilling entrepreneurial traits among the students. Now, this cannot be underscored enough. I'll come to this subject a bit later in my presentation. Now, before we get into that presentation proper, there may be a little bit of elementary level that I would like to touch upon. The second thing will be, what is this all about? There are 4 factors of production I think all of you teaching faculty are already aware of. Land, basically payment of land is equal to rent, and payment of labor is wages, and payment of capital is interest. Now, what is payment for entrepreneur? Profit, right? So essentially, if you look at all this, if the entrepreneur is the most important element in the value chain. If the entrepreneur is not there, none of the other 3 elements will exist. So essentially, it's a profit which is a driving factor for the entrepreneur to create value and to create capital and to create wealth for the country and for him. Now, there are umpteen examples of factors of production. Particularly, I'm going to lay more stress on I would say, the entrepreneurship here. No business enterprise in this world would have been formed had the human beings not decided to take the necessary risk. Now, let's take the example of Columbus. If Columbus thought that he should not travel around the world, he would not have sort of gone and discovered a lot of interesting places. Now, I would call, he's a seafarer inventor, but I would still call him an entrepreneur because he has gone ahead and set up various human civilization in habitation and also businesses and also businesses of trade and commerce. All those things flourished whenever they went to new territories, new economies, and you can even say that it has happened worldwide. There are several seafarers who have gone around. They are one of the earliest entrepreneurs, according to me. What is the role of the entrepreneur in the economic development? The entrepreneur acts as a catalyst in the process of industrialization and economic growth. A catalyst is definitely needed because without a catalyst, you really cannot get things done. Therefore, is a key to creation of new enterprises that energize the economy and rejuvenate the established enterprises that make up the economic structure. Now, what is this all about? We come to the first element, that is the capital formation. Entrepreneurs are responsible for, as I mentioned to you earlier, they are responsible for wealth creation and also creation of value into the economy. So essentially, whatever idle savings are in the economy goes into the system. It is the entrepreneur which definitely attracts the capital to go into this new growth. So hence, an entrepreneur is rightfully called as a creator of wealth. Now, what does entrepreneur do? They basically convert the latent resources like land, labor and capital into national income and the wealth in the form of goods and services. So hence, it's a very important task that they do because it's a nation building, and also in terms of creation of value, as I said, short of being repeating, the creation of value for a country is the most important element which the entrepreneur does. Now, the entrepreneur also creates employment. Now, one may ask, there cannot be thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs in any country. There are entrepreneurs who are created, whose task is set out. But what they do, as I said earlier, they bring about all the three elements of factors of production and then create what we call it as an enterprise. So first thing is they generate employment. For people who want employment, they are being given employment in their organizations, in their business enterprises, or it could be small scale units where they offer jobs to millions. Entrepreneur also is very responsible in terms of regional development. Now, here I would like to take the example of Oman. Now, if you look at Oman, very wisely under the leadership of the late His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, we have gone ahead and set up economic development and created economic development, the creation of specialized zones. We have seen specialized zones in Rusail, Raisut, Swahar, Buremi, Samail, Nizwa, Sur, and of course, Knowledge Oasis Muscat. Knowledge Oasis Muscat is not in the same level as a specialized zone, but then it has got its task very specialized in terms of creating knowledge, in terms of attracting capital, intellectual capital for people who want to set up their businesses out here in Oman. They could come and set up their businesses, high specialized businesses in terms of which is, more technology oriented. So COM does a very wonderful job in that area. So again, this is the initiative of the government. So government itself is actively nurturing local entrepreneurship in ushering in industrial development here in Oman. Now, entrepreneurs make a very important contribution in terms of removing the scarcity of essential commodities. They introduce new products, production of goods on a mass scale, and manufacture of handicrafts, small scale sector, and they offer goods at the low cost and increased variety in consumption. Now, one may ask, is this the task of a entrepreneur? No, not really, because in an economy, an entrepreneur, there are a cluster of entrepreneurs, because in regional economic development, most countries specialize in having what we call as industrial zones, where they nurture the entrepreneurs to come and develop their business units, for which there is capital which is being available, there is a marketing which is being available, then there is an export-import benefits which the services like in Oman, we got ITRA, export services and investment promotion services, which do a fantastic job in terms of creating value for Oman, creating value for Oman's non-oil exports. So this is a very important job, that is improvement in living standards which the entrepreneurs does with the hand holding by the government. Economic independence, this is very, very important. Now, obviously, you can see that entrepreneurs is very essential for national self-reliance. You cannot have entirely an import-driven economy, because if in a particular time, when your imports are going to be affected due to certain developments which is beyond anybody's control, then the whole country comes to a standstill. So this is where the entrepreneurs come into the picture. They do a fantastic job in terms of creating those industrial clusters, and they are more important in creating import substitution and doing export promotion. This is creating what you call it as an economic independence of the country. We have got umpteen examples in history. We have got China, Japan, Korea, and Singapore, which during the World War, they were practically nothing in terms of their size and in terms of their importance. Now, from the World War II to now, how they have grown, how they have evolved is something everybody can always see that. Now, what is this backward and forward linkages which the entrepreneur does? If you look at it from the slide, the entrepreneur, for a steel plant, there is a lot of ancillary units which need to be set up. A large scale steel plant is generally set up by an industrial development, by big promoters, by even the government organizations, or even by foreign investments. But these units don't function. They don't function on their own. It's not a zero-sum game. So basically, they need to have ancillary units which provides all the support services. This is where the entrepreneurs come in. So entrepreneurs provide all those forward and backward linkages to manufacturing. They create an economic system. They create an ecosystem for employment, an ecosystem for trade and commerce. And entrepreneurial behavior is very critical to the long-term vitality of every economy. Therefore, it's very, very important how they act as a backward and forward linkages. Now, I come to the subject proper because prior to this, I just wanted to give you a little bit of introduction on what is the role in long-term economic development. Now, what are the strategies to build as a career, as an entrepreneur? So let's see what are they. If you are an entrepreneur, you need to study the market. Now, before I get into study the market, I, for one, believe that beyond all this, what I'm going to present in these slides, I believe that every entrepreneur should know what is he going to get out of this particular business enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, why I say this is, according to me, as a practitioner, you should be in a position to know whatever you're producing, you should be able to sell them either locally or you should be able to sell them overseas. Unless and until you don't create a market for your products or your services, I think entrepreneurship doesn't have any meaning. So let me start. So first of all, one has to look at the market study. He has to look at what's available in the market, whether there is a need for this particular product and whether there is any competition. So this is something which the entrepreneur has to study very carefully before embarking on this project. This is a very favorite subject. Of course, you need not credit me with the quote, "Cash is the king," is a quote given by a celebrated management professor several decades ago. I do not remember the name, but in the context in which he has said so it was on the Great American Depression during the 1930s. During that time, there was a tremendous recession which continued for a very long time. Now, if you notice, very interestingly, there are some industries, even during that recession times, survived. Which are those? There is no, one need not have to identify and mention about A, B, C, but I would say organizations who are in a position to make sure that they don't burn out cash will survive for a long term. So very, very important for an entrepreneur is that when he sets up a business, he should not be burning out cash on expenditures which does not create any value over a long term. So this is very, very important according to me. Third thing is, the entrepreneur has to make sure that he has to understand what are the emerging products and services on the horizon which will improve his operations. Thorough understanding of the ecosystem is very essential in the sense that he should know how the products or services by the entrepreneur will be received by the market. So hence, as I mentioned earlier, a thorough homework is very, very essential. And more importantly, during these days, there is a tremendous amount of disruption which is happening in the economic system. So the technology element which every business has to be cutting edge, according to me. So hence he has to make sure, the entrepreneur, he or she has to make sure that how are they going to offer their value propositions to the market. Value proposition to the market is the most important thing. Hence, research into new products and services naturally correlate to that. Again, the most important thing here is we say any steps which the entrepreneur takes, he cannot be reckless because, ladies and gentlemen, try to understand that an entrepreneur, what is the most important constraint in an entrepreneur? Cash, capital, because as I mentioned earlier, nobody is going to give the person a loan or a private equity or even a venture capital on day one. So there has to be a certain demonstration effect which has to be done by the entrepreneur before he or she becomes right for a private equity or even a loan by a bank. So hence, baby steps are very, very important, and check the market, and you should not be very over ambitious in terms of saying that, oh, I will go ahead and capture the 1% of China, as I mentioned earlier here. So it's not. You ought to be concentrating on niche marketing, which can be extremely cost effective, and meet the market needs by something new and compelling. And most important thing, you should understand what we call it in the commercial parlance as hot buttons. Hot buttons meaning that by which touch of these particular steps, the market can be ignited so as to be ready to receive his products or services. This is a very interesting subject, according to me. This is called as a KYC. All of you may be aware of the fact that the KYC denotes know your customer. Now, know your customer is generally used in the parlance of a government organization for KYC compliance, they call it, or even a bank, which periodically, probably every year, they tells you, come on, give me the details about you, tell me that you are not a US citizen, you are not this, you are not that, and so on and so forth, etc., and declare to us whether you are a tax resident. But that's not the purview of our discussion here. But here, the entrepreneur is basically should look at what we call it as know his customers. If he is not in a position to identify where his customers reside, whether they are locally, whether they are overseas, then I'm sure it's going to be very tough to market his products and services. So hence, knowing the customer very well is very, very important, because all your marketing, most important here is, I have a very interesting example to share with all of you. The only thing constant in life is change, which I'm sure every one of us is aware of it. Now, in this, I have said that there are lots of companies, lots and lots of businesses which have never considered change as a constant thing, and they are buckled under. I've given you examples here of 3 companies, which I'm sure quite a few are aware of. One is a Blockbuster Video in US. Now, Blockbuster Video, gentlemen and ladies, this was a company which was specializing in video library lending and so on and so forth. In the 70s, it was doing great business, and people thought there is nothing like, nothing can go wrong for Blockbuster. What happened to Blockbuster? Its economics completely collapsed within the next 10 years, thanks to online streaming like Netflix and other people. Netflix is a recent phenomenon, but there are a number of online streaming where the internet bandwidth which increased, and the connectivity increased, the line became very stronger. So people don't want to go to video libraries to borrow films and other things like that. So essentially, they did not see the change which is happening behind their shoulders. So hence, one has to be very, very careful in terms of what sort of competition will come. Now, obviously, why I'm saying this is, disruption is very, very important. It's going to be the bane of every single business in this world. Blockbuster lost it where they were in the video business. We all know Kodak lost it. Kodak was the pioneer in photography business. They lost it because they did not see what's happening. Kodak was completely replaced by all the digital cameras. Now, this is how the evolution happened, Now, the traditional film business completely gone away, and people don't want to keep the hard copies of all the photographic prints, which used to be the case several years ago. Nokia is another example which also lost it. Nokia was a world's leading cell phone manufacturers for many, many years. It did not see how the smartphones are going to come over into the economic system, or the world has really embraced it. Now we all know Nokia is nowhere in the picture. Nokia was acquired by Microsoft, but then it didn't really help, but eventually Nokia buckled under. In fact, the Nokia CEO cried very badly. It was a very poignant sight several years ago during the stock exchange, before the stock exchange meet, into this annual general body meeting. The CEO cried. He said, what wrong did I did? In fact, one of the shareholders quipped that you didn't do anything right. In fact, that's what it is. Now, the last example that I would like to say about this constant thing is the online education. Now, this is a subject which I'm sure all members of the teaching faculty of the college, and also not only in Oman, everywhere in the world, will be alive to this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing competition from the organizations such as Coursera and EDX in a very big way. Now, I'll tell you why I feel that this is going to be a very revolutionary change. A few months ago, President Trump announced that during this year, because of pandemic, the COVID-19, they are going to take less number of students for their physical classes in the US. Now, I was wondering what's going to happen, because they said from the point of view of health, they don't want many people cluttering into the university campuses, because there will be a sort of widespread disease spread and so on and so forth and things like that. But essentially, what he did not say, according to me, was the online education competition. Today, Coursera and EDX, to repeat again, they offer formidable competition to established education institutions. I think we are the conventional or the legacy institutions need to pull up their socks up and make sure they have a value proposition to the students and the entire community and the people at large, so as to be more relevant in the space. The next subject is the innovative ideas and opportunity. Now, this is a very interesting subject for an entrepreneur. Everyone has got an idea. Does all the ideas create an opportunity? No. Let's see, what is it all about? Are ideas and opportunity the same? Sorry, it's not so. Ideas are totally different and opportunity is something different. Let's see what they are. Ideas are important, They are creative lifeblood for your business. However, an idea is not an opportunity. Let's see what are the 5 major differences between innovative ideas and opportunity. Ideas are a dime a dozen. I have to read it from my slide because it cannot be more crisp than this. Opportunities have value. Ideas just take inspiration. Opportunities need perspiration too. You can work on a lot of ideas at once, but should focus only on 1 or 2 opportunities. When dealing with ideas, it's okay to dream and speculate because it doesn't cost you anything to dream and do anything. But when you're coming to an opportunity, it is supposed to be measured. It is supposed to use data. Last but not the least, this is the most important thing according to me. The 5th point is investors don't put money into ideas. I repeat, investors do not put money into ideas. They only back viable opportunities. So if your opportunity is not viable for the market, sorry, you will not be given capital, maybe venture capital or private equity. Now let's see, what is a business idea? A business idea is a concept that can be used to make money. It usually centers on product or service that can be offered for money. This business idea has the potential to make money and it has no commercial value initially. In fact, most ideas exist only in an abstract form, usually in the mind of the creator or an investor, and not all business ideas, no matter how brilliant, would end up being profitable. To find out an idea's chances on the market, we have to see it has to possess these following 5 characteristics. First of all, the idea has to be relevant. It has to fulfill the customer's needs and solve their problems. It has to be something innovative, something unique. It has to have the clear focus, and most important, should be profitable in the long run. According to me, the acceptability and profitability of business idea hinges on how the idea is innovative and whether being innovative means using conventional production or distribution methods. You can see there is a classic example of FedEx I have used here. FedEx have revolutionized their mail post services through 24-hour operation, very quick delivery worldwide. The company adopted an innovative system which eventually spurred it into becoming one of the world's leading mail and parcel delivery services. However, more important here is the benefit that this idea is going to pass on to the customers. That's what we are more concerned about. So any business idea focuses on lowering cost and would most likely be profitable in the long run. A successful business idea must therefore meet the following 3 conditions. It must benefit to the customer, and by solving a long fulfilling need, and customers buy the products and services for only this reason. So if your business idea cannot satisfy customers, sorry, it won't be successful. It must have a market that is willing to accept it. It must also have a feasible arrangements for catering to that market and offer unique values that differentiates it from the competition. Now, you have seen what's a business idea. Let's see what's a business opportunity. A business opportunity, on the other hand, is a proven concept that generates ongoing income. In other words, a business opportunity is a business idea that has been researched upon, refined, packaged into a promising venture. When multiple business ideas strike you on a daily basis, only few of them are profitable in the long run. There are few real business opportunities. An opportunity, therefore, is regarded as the one after it has been found to meet the following criteria. These are the criteria, ladies and gentlemen. It must have high gross margins. It must have the potential to reach break-even cash flow within 12 to 36 months. Now, this is a point which I would like to differ. It's not always possible that you will be able to make a break-even within the first 12 months. This is a very idealistic situation. Here they are given a range between 12 to 36 months, but I think anywhere if you are able to break even between 18 to 24 months, according to me, that's the midpoint, is a fair enough idea which can be treated as a good opportunity. The startup capital investments must be realistic and within the range that you can provide. You have the strength and ability needed to drive the business to success. The level of enthusiasm for the business must be very high. It must have the potential for residual income. Now, what is this? It must have the residual income means apart from the normal income, it must give you a spin-off benefits by way of giving you some spread over into other related areas which can generate revenue streams on its own. It's just like a byproduct in the manufacturing industry because you produce some, during the production of the finished goods, you also get some other product which can be sold on a standalone basis, which gives you what we call it as a byproduct, which is a residual income which comes through. It must have the potential to keep on improving with time and a low level of liability risk. In conclusion, I want you to know that the world is filled with brilliant ideas, but the world lacks entrepreneurs who have the capacity to such ideas to profitable business opportunities. It is one thing to develop an idea, but it is entirely different ballgame to turn an idea into an opportunity. Gentlemen and ladies, you must see here what happened to the Colonel Sanders. I don't know whether how many of you know about Colonel Sanders. If you have been to Kentucky Fried Chicken, you have an icon of a gentleman, an elderly person with a cap. He's Colonel Sanders. You all know at what time he became an entrepreneur? He became an entrepreneur close to the age of 80. Kentucky Fried Chicken was his baby. At the age of 78, if I'm not mistaken, he founded the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, what is the moral lesson in this? Because an idea can come at any given point of time. Now, how do you turn business idea into an opportunity? You can turn a business idea by conducting market research, feasibility study on your idea, writing a business plan, assembling a business team that will work with you on your idea. Only then such an idea will become an opportunity and attract investors and probably get the needed financing. Now, I am going to share with you a very interesting video on entrepreneurship, innovation, and also original thought process. I'm sure I think quite a few of you will be aware of this country, a small country in Europe called Estonia. Now, Estonia, what is it famous for? Now, there are many countries. If you look at the business site called doingbusiness.org, I would request all of you to go through this website. Once again, I repeat, doingbusiness.org. It talks about various countries, their competitive advantages in terms of inviting investments into their economy, the ease of business, ease of doing business, etc., etc. Now, Estonia, according to me, did not have any competitive advantage on the face of it. It's a very small country, but what they did was something mind-boggling. I'm going to keep it leave it as a suspense for you to understand what is the innovative thing that they did. I'm just going to a video here.
Every Tuesday, we bring you an insightful look into fascinating events from all around the world. Today we're looking at why Estonia is the country of the future. Welcome to alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello, Aluxers. We're sure all of our viewers love going digital and are crazy about the power of the internet. Well, in today's video, we're going to take a look at an entire nation that has transformed itself into a digital community and is set to become the country of the future. We know you're excited to learn more about what a digital future could look like for all of us, and you might be surprised to learn that digital residency is actually a thing. By the end of the video, we'll show you how to do it, but first, let's cover the basics. Introduction. As some of you may already have guessed, when we say the country of the future, we're referring to Estonia. And for those who are hearing this name for the first time, don't worry, we got you covered. Estonia is a tiny country in Northern Europe that regained its independence after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, and since then has transformed itself into a safe, convenient, and flexible digital society by the power of the internet, and now is calling itself e-Estonia. Be it public services, healthcare, taxation, economy, or manufacturing. In Estonia, everything is digitized, which makes everyday life easy, hassle-free, and reduces cost and time for everyone. The past. Unlike the majority of nations where digitization is limited to the private sector and most governments are reluctant to use new age technologies, in Estonia, the government has realized the power of data and made early efforts by investing in information technology and digitizing the public services. The transformation started in 1997 with the introduction of e-governance, which at that point in time was a necessity, since the newly formed nation did not have enough resources to create a fully fledged bureaucratic system like their other European counterparts. Also, the government saw this as an opportunity to create a more efficient system in order to channel the growth of the country. And today, Estonia has become one of the most economically successful of the European Union's newer Eastern European members. Today in Estonia, 99% of public services are available online 24/7. 30% of Estonians use iVoting, and the country estimates the reduced bureaucracy has saved 800 years of working time. Each of the 1.3 million citizens in Estonia has a digital ID that provides access to all of the digital services, ranging from banking to healthcare, saving time and tedious red tape processes. The digital ID consists of embedded files, which stores all the relevant data of the individual. Today, Estonia is set to become the Silicon Valley of Europe. Currently, it houses 550 startups, and there's a yearly growth of 30% in startup sectors. The country also hosts 4 unicorn companies, including Skype, which was completely curated in Estonia with the help of foreign capital. How it works. Well, you might be wondering how the country manages so much data on a daily basis. The answer is a distributed data system called X-Road, where data is exchanged instantly upon request, providing access 24/7. The iVoting facility gives citizens freedom to vote from anywhere in the world, while the e-taxation system helps you to pay taxes online in 3 to 5 minutes, which is why 95% of all the tax declarations are filed electronically. Apart from digitizing governance, Estonia has also developed IT systems that have increased accessibility and efficiency in healthcare, education, and security, making everyday life better. Since 2008, 95% of the data generated by doctors and hospitals has been digitized. The patients own their records, and the doctors can access them from anywhere in the world and make better-informed decisions for their patients' treatment. The educational digital revolution in Estonia aims to implement modern digital technology more efficiently and effectively in learning and teaching to improve the digital skills of the entire nation. In fact, Estonia expects that by 2020, all study materials in the country will be digitized and available through an online e-school bag. This education system definitely sounds like one for future generations. In order to protect the citizens efficiently, employees of the security services are using digital services too, and are now able to remotely determine 35% of the locations of accident victims to within a 5-meter radius, and 93% of emergency calls are answered within 10 seconds. Estonian police are no longer allowed to stop cars for technical checks, as all the relevant data is available using their onboard computer. This has made their police force 50 times more efficient. The country has also made it legal to test and use self-driven cars in order to improve transportation, making it safer and more efficient. What's more, on any day in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, you can see package delivery robots. Believe it or not, they walk there. Since the majority of processes are digitized, the country relies on a huge database, and in order to protect the same from cyber threats, Estonia has implemented blockchain technology to ensure safety and integrity of all data collected. The country has also become the home for NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence and has become the leader in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has become one of the biggest concerns we face today, and every giant company is actively tracking what you do online and using that data to alter your behavior. That's why we partnered with the great folks at NordVPN. We've negotiated an exclusive VPN deal tailored to our community, where you get 3 years of online security for the price of 1. We recommend you take full advantage of this opportunity and go to alux.com/VPN and sign up using the code ALUX to take control over what you do online today. E-residency. In the hopes of boosting the national economy, Estonia has opened up its digital borders to the world. In just a few minutes, you can become a digital citizen of Estonia, and it takes just a few hours to incorporate your new paperless EU company, and it all costs just a couple of $100s. Since all taxes are digital, you get to make all payments you owe online, making it perfect for digital nomads, freelancers, or those of you who consider yourselves citizens of the world. So, if you're a tech-savvy millennial who believes that going digital is your birthright, and you want to make your life faster, easier, and better, then Estonia is the country of the future. This graphic showcases Estonia's digital journey so far and what they're looking into next. The future. Having become the leader in digitization, Estonia is now focusing on moving basic services into full digital mode, so things are done for citizens automatically and invisibly by the use of blockchain and AI. In the future, Estonia is hoping to bring a real-time economy into reality, wherein the financial and administrative transactions connecting citizens, businesses, and the public sector entities are in structured, standardized digital form and increasingly generated automatically and completed in real time. This can lead to solutions like real-time payments, e-ID services, real-time e-invoicing and e-receipts, automated and real-time accounting and VAT reporting, automated credit and investment risk evaluation and processing. All of these can hugely benefit digital single markets by directly saving the costs. Estonia is looking to go 100% transparent with everything concerning the citizen and the way the country runs. The rest of the world has a lot to learn from this tiny nation, but the real question is the model replicable in bigger countries? The governments of bigger countries can surely not make their size an excuse and not embrace the wave of digitization, otherwise advancements in the private sector will outpace them. While this is true, one must remember that the model of e-Estonia can't be directly replicated in other nations, since the socio-political environment in Estonia is very specific and well suited for a digital economy to thrive. But this has not stopped the Estonian government from offering to license their digital infrastructure to any country willing to use it. Question. Because we have such a large international audience, we're interested to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how digital is your current national government? Leave your answer and the country you're from in the comments section below. And of course, as a thank you for watching this video until the end, you get a bonus. Here it is. In 2007, Russia launched a full-fledged countrywide DDoS cyber attack against Estonia after the government decided to remove a Russian statue from its capital city. They targeted everything from governance to banks to media. This sparked such an outrage from the Estonian government that since the 2007 attacks, they've been world leaders in cybersecurity. The event also paved the way for a new fighting ground focused mainly on cyber warfare. Thank you for spending some time with us, A-Luxers. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos, which we recommend you watch next. Thank you for being an A-Luxer, and we'll see you back tomorrow.
I think the video was quite useful to all of you, and it is indeed a very revelation. And why did I bring this video for all of you to see is because it talks about the value proposition a country has to offer. If you look at Estonia, it is a very small country. It has over the years perfected what we call it as its unique value proposition. And then there is one statement which has been mentioned by the country's topmost person, or maybe whatever the political person is, that the example of Estonia cannot be replicated so easily in the other countries, which is very true, because what we call it as a DNA or a collective ecosystem which is prevailing in the country, that should be very important for moving ahead. So that's nothing but entrepreneurship. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this bring this to the attention of all of you to appreciate this particular video. Now let's look at what we call it as steps for making a successful business plan for an entrepreneur. First, as I mentioned, the entrepreneur has to do the research. He has to give a research, and the research will give you a very clear idea in terms of what this product or what this project is all about. And this should say very clearly that the information used has to be relevant, valuable, and objective. We are not writing a big prose here, but we are writing a very precise information for anybody to take a look and get more interested in this project. The second, the project must have a purpose. It must tell a story. What is it all about? And if one doesn't know why the business plan is being written, the effort will be a waste of time. Knowing also means having the target audience you expect to plan to be ready. The next thing, craft a company snapshot. Some call it a profile, but I would like to call it as company snapshot, because traditionally you used to write a long prose in terms of what is it all about. But nowadays, people are quite comfortable in terms of reviewing your information for the business website. It is designed to be quick, digestible, and also needs to stick into reader's mind, especially as more information is provided later in the plan. The fourth one will be detail the company in total. Now, when you talk about detail the company in total, you talk about the company status in full, both good and bad. There could be weaknesses, there could be plans. Details should also include key features like patents, licenses, copyrights, unique strength that no one else has. If you all remember what I mentioned earlier on, according to me, whatever we do, the most important thing is the marketing plan. If you don't know what you are going to sell, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a wrong place, because a strategic marketing plan is very essential. It shows how your product or service is going to be delivered, communicated, and sold to customers. It covers where, when, and how much, all the key pieces that later on feed into a financial statement or projections. Now, the most important thing is that one has to be flexible and adaptable. You have created a business plan, you have created a story, you have created a research, you are talking about what's a marketing plan. Now, if you don't have adaptability, if you are not willing to change for the plan of your audience, because sometimes what will happen, there is a bit of a tweak which may be required in the plan. The entrepreneur should be willing to give that sort of tweak. This is what I would like to call it as be willing to change the plan for your audience. Not the basic plan, but the plan in parts here and there, so that it becomes fundable, it becomes bankable. The most important thing, what we call it as the personal motivation. Now, what are the motivation and the goals of the entrepreneur? Your motivation needs to be a reason that will convince people that the business will succeed through thick and thin. You must be very passionate about what you're talking about. That's why motivation is very, very important in a business plan. Now, what are the contents of the business plan? Now, the contents of the business plan, I would like to quickly go through this because this is something most of you are already aware of. But let's at least take the basic major headings on that. First, it talks about the executive summary. The executive summary of the business plan is where all the promoters involved in the business should be introduced and the reasons behind the preparation of the business plan. It talks about the next is business description. Talks about the people. It talks about the product, objective, and SWOT analysis. That is the strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats in a project. The people here talks about who are the founders, who are the management. The most important, please understand, a business plan will become bankable, will become appealing to somebody only if they see that there is a proper management structure that exists within the organization. The organization cannot survive on the strength of a single entrepreneur which rests on his brilliant business idea, which can be turned into an opportunity. But if there is no management structure, ladies and gentlemen, be rest assured that your project will never become bankable. So people are very, very important. And here you should also mention about Are there any advisors to the particular project? It could be even financial advisors, or it could be even legal advisors. Talk about your product. What is the product all about? The unique selling point, the benefits, features, and future developments. Here we're talking about the objective. The objective should include specific milestones to be achieved by the business. It should include sales forecast, employment, as well as product development. SWOT analysis, I'm not going to go deep into it, is basically the environment in which the company is operating, which talks about what is the strength and the weakness for the organization, at the same time, what are the opportunities and the threats that exist both within and outside the organization. Market analysis, which is very much related to your market research. It is very, very important that you must have this market analysis ready. There are 4 main headings to cover in this section. What is it all about in market analysis? One is the target market. It talks about which market segment that we're really looking at. Then the trends. It talks about whether the market is growing or declining. Are we in a sunset? Are we getting into a business when it is a sunset? So it is very, very important to know what is the project all about. Then you should also talk about your competitors who are already in the market. They can be direct competitors, or they can be competitors who are incidental to your existing products and services. So an analysis about them will be very, very helpful. Then the most important thing is the competitive advantage. The potential customers, why they should choose your company's products vis-a-vis the competitors. This section talks about marketing and sales strategy. It talks about detailing your strategy for reaching out your target market and developing their interest in products and services. How will you differentiate yourself from the competition? Describe your sales strategy in terms of whether you're going to appoint a single distributor or a multi-distributor, or you're going to sell through your website, you're going to have an online e-commerce platform. Analyze the costs involved in each of the sales method and both the advantages and disadvantages of each method. Next is the most important thing, is the communication strategy. The advertising and the communications about the company, the products are very, very important. These days, with so much of online platform becoming more and more wide across the world, the online platform communication is very important. Now, you could even use social media. You could even use different types of online platform, depending on what type of the product you are in. For example, if you are into, let's say, a product which has got everyday use, is an FMCG product, or maybe a lifestyle product or something like that, you will probably go very whole hog in Facebook, or maybe in Instagram, or maybe in another form of media where people get more hooked onto it, and there is an engagement, what we call it as, between the company, the products, and also the customers. Staffing and operations is very, very important, because ultimately the people who are running the business, they are supported by a set of staff members, a set of experts who are basically behind the scene operating, whether they could be frontline or they could be a backend. You need to, the staffing and operations should have the management structure. We should also talk about the organization chart and staffing, as well as the training plans. Funding requirements is entirely dependent on the previous sections being completely given in a very exhaustive manner. Anyone, for example, whether he's a co-investor or probably even a bank or a financial institution, will definitely look at all your previous importance. The previous aspects which you have highlighted are very correctly reflected, then definitely you become bankable for funding requirements. Now, in the business plan, you have to attach a whole lot of other information. These are more admin oriented, but this is very, very important still to not to be forgetting, is basically the curriculum vitae, or the CVs, what we call it, of the key people. It talks about your business plan with the financial assumptions in terms of the next 5 years or 10 years. And it talks about what type of testimonials that the organization has got, and whether you got the term sheet from potential investors and the company's website details, so on and so forth. Now, with this, I probably come to the last section of my presentation, which is the role of teachers in instilling entrepreneurial traits among students. Now, one may ask, what is so important about talking about the entrepreneurial traits among the students? Before we go into it, one fundamental question. Do you think entrepreneurship can be taught? It's a very difficult question to answer. The answer is yes, as well as no. Because traditionally, what we call it as, because when we had traits approach to leadership, people always believed that the leaders are born, the leaders are never made. One tends to strongly disagree with this statement, but that is a statement of the olden era, but not the statement of the current era. So hence, going by the same basis, Entrepreneurship can be taught, but then there is a particular method to go about it. Let's see what are these. When you, as a teacher, when you stand in front of the classroom and impart knowledge, you have genuine power. The educators will make all the difference. How do we go about doing this? There are some remarkable tools, resources, and methods that you can apply. The data shows that the young people are really our future. So hence, what I said earlier, is entrepreneurship is a part of the DNA? The answer is, I think some may say yes, some may say no. But I would say yes, there is a part of it is in the DNA too. Because children are known to exhibit entrepreneurial behavior from a very young age as 5 years. There are historical research which has proven that. It is at this formative time there are noticeable differences between them and their peer group. While many may simply overlook the characteristics associated with entrepreneurship in children, educators have a very core duty to identify and nurture them. According to the Academy of Entrepreneurship Journal, educators have to play a very vital role in the future business pursuits of their students. Students do get highly motivated by positive, encouraging comments from teachers. I would say, just to give a stray example here, I would encourage each one of you, here I'm not referring to the academic faculty, I'm talking to the students who are present in the audience, to sort of read books by Stephen Covey. He is a hugely motivated teacher, hugely motivated management practitioner, who is no more, of course, he passed away a few years ago, but his books are real motivating. So obviously that gives you a pathway in terms of looking at how do we plan your future. Armed with this knowledge, of course, it is that very important that educational institutions put great emphasis on their students' entrepreneurial traits from a very earliest possible age. What then are the challenges of spotting an entrepreneur? Research from the Institute of Education, that is University of London, shows that there are some small yet fundamental differences between future entrepreneurs and their peer group. Here are some of the institute's findings around the signs exhibited by children at 10 years of age. Extremely, they have high levels of self-esteem. It's very interesting. According to the research, future entrepreneurs scored 0.13 on this trait, whereas their peers average at minus 0.01. It is therefore fair to say that entrepreneurial students tend to be more outgoing and confident than is the norm for their age group. High levels of self-regulation. Now, what is this self-regulation all about? To me, I would say self-discipline. Now, self-regulation and self-discipline, to my mind, are synergistic or probably more or less of the same coin. They are two sides of the same coin. The thing is, the business owners need to regulate their own lifestyles and workflows. You may think it's a learned characteristic, but the findings tell a different story. Entrepreneurial children come in at 0.15 on self-regulation compared to the average of their peers at 0.01. I would like to say here an example here. We all know people today are health conscious. People try to work out, people run, people take a morning walk and do yoga, do exercises, etc., etc. What is this all about? This is nothing but self-regulation or self-discipline. So somebody who is self-disciplined is very ideally a candidate for an entrepreneur. Now, why is it that the person can be called as a candidate for an entrepreneur? Is because he or she is willing to take the challenges and is willing to sacrifice and regulate his or her lifestyle so that the entrepreneurial challenges can be faced head on. They will have higher IQ. Now, this is an area which I think many of you may or may not agree. But by and large, an entrepreneur is not everybody's cup of tea, because it's, as we had seen earlier on in my presentation, you need to have a fair amount of risk-taking ability. Risk-taking ability is your ability to sort of study what is available to you in the ecosystem and take appropriate steps. So naturally, your thinking faculties have to be of a very high order than an average person. So hence, it says you need to have a slightly higher IQ levels. Children's aptitude for basic skill as math and reading. According to the sample, students who went to went to become entrepreneurs at higher math abilities than their peers at lower reading skills. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very interesting example to share here on higher IQ levels. It does not relate to the entrepreneurs per se, but it has got certain parallels. If all of you may be knowing about Professor Ramcharan. Professor Ramcharan used to be a very well-known management guru, one can call it. He is still associated with Harvard, of course, on a sparring level. He has published a book way back in 2002. The book's name was called as Execution. It is about getting things done. Fortune magazine once dubbed him as the most influential consultant alive on the planet. Now, what does he say? How do we relate the sayings of Professor Ramcharan here in terms of instilling the entrepreneurship values? Now, I'll tell you what it is my parallel or my way of drawing the parallel here, that uncertainty can create an opportunity. Professor Ramcharan says, the more you practice the skills to deal with it, it should be seen as a set of skills. The more self-confidence you will develop and the better prepared you will be to lead. Don't you think this resonates with the entrepreneurship skill, ability, and the quality? Now, the other interesting things about the mathematical tools, which is mentioned here in this slide, he made a very interesting revelation, or I wouldn't say a revelation is a wrong word. I'm sorry. He made a very interesting observation way back in 2002. Now we are today in 2020, almost 18 years later. In 2002, when he published his book, he mentioned in the book that the future will belong to those organizations or to those businesses who have got a very good and sound understanding of mathematical tools. What is this all about? He said, your understanding of mathematical tools such as algorithms, software to use them to crunch data and predict patterns and changes. He went to the extent of even naming the companies. Companies with these capabilities, the companies is called as a maths houses. Now, what are these maths houses? Would you all want to know what are these? Yes, I will share it with you. It's none other than Google. It's none other than Amazon. Now, this gentleman, don't you think had a huge foresight way back in 2002? At that time, neither Amazon nor Google were anywhere at the present size. He said these are the organizations which uses these two algorithms. Mathematical tools are going to be the companies for the future to watch out. So much for about this particular example related to entrepreneurship. Now, the next will be scientific tools are there available in the market to identify entrepreneurial traits. This is not an exact science to figuring out what makes someone an entrepreneur. However, there are tools which allow you to identify students with these traits. It may be worth, as an educator, having your students complete these assessments so that you may better understand their talents. Some of the options that you may wish to consider when finding the entrepreneurs and leaders of tomorrow in your institute. One of the most interesting way to understand this is what we call the Builder Profile 10, BP10 assessment by Gallup. I'm sure I think your institute or your educational institution is already using this, but if you are not using this, I would strongly request you to consider this. The Gallup BP10 assessment assesses the candidates on a different certain criteria. The tool is centered around 10 core talents that are essential in any entrepreneur and seeks to find out whether individuals already have them. When you have bought the test on behalf of your institute, you will be able to use it with your students in the classroom environment. Each student will have to take a 30-minute assessment, and the results will always be instantaneous. It reminds me of the what do you call it as the psychometric testing, similar to psychometric testing, which is administered by the Thompsons as well as the Myers and Briggs psychometric testing. The results come in the form of in-depth evaluation of each student's strengths and depths of the 10 core entrepreneurial talents. Using them, an educator may be able to gain a stronger understanding of whom they teach. This is basically nothing which I mentioned to you, similar to what I said is the open psychometric test source, a collaborative project established by UK universities and research students. You can access tests revolving around aptitude, leadership, numerical skills, and of course, entrepreneurship. Each candidate simply has to answer 50 questions here, saying whether they agree with each statement using a measure of very accurate to very accurate, very inaccurate to very accurate. The results will then offer a full breakdown of students' abilities. I'm practically coming to the end of my presentation. Now here, before we conclude, how do we nurture young entrepreneurs? Once an educator that has used the above information and tools to identify gifted students within their institute, their job is by no means over. The stumbling block for many, though, is how to take to the next step and nurture the talents that these young people possess. To aid you with this conundrum, it is worth taking a look at the research from Academy of Entrepreneurship Journal, which once more insights are offered in their classes and workshops. First, one has to identify through the BP10 Gallup model, and that will enable you to understand their strong business talents or budding business talents. It is important to understand this is only the beginning of the story. Working from assessment results, the educator can provide learning activity to nurture these talents. Think about your curriculum development. Once the talent is identified, there needs to be methods in place for students to nurture and develop their innate talent. One key aspect of the educators to consider is to allow students to practice their talents as much as they would practice any traditional subjects. I understand in Oman there is Riyada, there is an organization called Riyada, which is doing fantastic job in terms of nurturing young entrepreneurs, incubating them and handholding them, and finally making sure that they're ready for the market. Learning experience, what we call it as vicarious learning, is the act of experience taking on knowledge from the success of others. Teachers may invite successful entrepreneurs into classroom to deliver speeches or even skill lessons. The inclusion of entrepreneurs and business owners within an educational setting may seem unusual, but it is the one that seriously pays off in terms of results. The teachers are playing indeed a very motivating and a very handholding role. Every educator seeks to encourage their students. They may have a deeper meaning. The research suggests that verbal persuasion, giving children positive reinforcement on their successes, can help them to boost their leadership skill set. Most important thing, fear of losing. Fear prevention lessons, according to me, is the most important. One of the major things that holds back young people is, when it comes to entrepreneurship, is a fear of failure. So hence, we have to do those appropriate steps to make sure that the fear is completely prevented or at least mitigated to certain other better method, and instilling them those confidence to start up their new venture alone in the future. After identifying the necessary steps and above mentioned, educators can give the students a fighting chance in the arena. Nurturing select students in this area will give them only confidence, and in this way, the modern day educators can truly make an impact on the future. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my presentation. I'm sorry if it was too long, but this is something which I had to share with all of you. Thank you for your valuable time. I now open the floor for any questions whatsoever. I will please feel free to put it up in your Q&A so that I will try to answer you to the maximum.
Thank you, sir. So it was a detailed insight on this topic. And it was a pleasure to listen to you, sir. Even I'm motivated enough to share these learning to my students. And at the end, you also highlighted that as a teacher, what role we can play in promoting the entrepreneurship. Thank you so much, sir. I'll be taking the certain questions which are posted in the QA session. So the first question is, most of the business fail in the first year or 2 year. What is the biggest mistake that most of the entrepreneur do? Please address, sir.
Thank you very much for the wonderful question. I think what you have raised is very, very relevant and topical. If you look at the failures of the entrepreneur in the first 2 years, the answer is already given in one of my slides earlier on. Two important things is very critical. I think one is self-regulation and self-discipline, I mentioned to you, because an entrepreneur has to be very persuasive, very focused, and most important thing is cash is the king, I mentioned to you, because cash is the most important thing, because if you burn out your cash, chances are that you may not have access to money from outside. So what will you do? Then natural result is failure. So to my mind, self-regulation and self-discipline, and also making sure that you spend your money very carefully, very judiciously.
Thank you, sir. This really helps us in understanding the possible mistakes that we may do in the future as an entrepreneur, or maybe students can do. So the second question says, as an entrepreneur, how to anticipate the risk, and can you suggest some of the ways to manage it?
Yes, I would say for an entrepreneur, risk is going to be a part and parcel of their life. In the sense, for that matter, any businesses or any even the life, your own life experience, we are all fraud, we are all countenancing risk at all times. So for an entrepreneur to sort of face and mitigate the risk is not going to be all that easy. The risk is going to be very, very constant. As I said, change is the only constant in life. So how do we face this risk? According to me, I think they have to be completely aware of what is happening around the ecosystem. See, today, if you look at it, every business is disrupted. There is no business in this world which is not disrupted. If it is not disrupted now, it will get disrupted at some point of time. So essentially, to sort of mitigate the risk and also face the risk, you must be in a position to offer value proposition in your business. So that I call it what you can do better than the competition, and that too at a lower cost. This is a very simple mantra or simple dictum which you should use, because I cannot become more simple than this, because one can give complicated concepts to say that you can do this, do that, and things like that. But I would say that when you are in the marketplace, you are there to offer your services or you are there to offer your products. Now, if you are in a position to offer your products at a much better value, which is better than what is available in the market, better than the competition, and also in a much superior and an efficient way at a lower cost, I'm sure you will be able to face the competition and will be able to face the risk fair and square.
Thank you, sir. We will keep that mantra to avoid the risk that can make entrepreneurship successful. So there is one more question.
Please.
What business opportunities are available for budding entrepreneur, especially for the students in the present scenario?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer, because for that you need to sort of look at the ecosystem in which the student operates. Let's say you take care about Oman. Oman, there are lots and lots of the government, I would say, pushed or driven initiatives which help the entrepreneurs to go into the marketplace. I would say an entrepreneur should not think of competing with large established organizations, because the biggest constraint that the entrepreneur will face is in terms of ability to scale up. I'm sure, I think what I mean by saying scale up is it's not easy to go and fight with the biggies of the world immediately from day one. So essentially, I would say that you should start off as someone who is in a position to offer value to the large organization, or create a superior value product which changes life of the customer or which changes the life of the large population. If that is the way in which he or she can go, I'm sure I think it can be sort of achieved. Again, as I said, an entrepreneur should not look at sort of, doing cloud burst. What do you mean by saying cloud burst? It's not something that is going to hit a jackpot from day one. He or she should hit a jackpot from day one. No, one need to persevere. There is a long, hard road, in the sense, it is not everybody's cup of tea, as I mentioned earlier, to become an entrepreneur. You need to have that sort of nerve. You need to have that perseverance and need to have that self-regulation. So hence, all rolled into one will enable you to sort of face the market well, fair and square. You need to do all those which is required as an entrepreneur to study the market. What is it that you can offer which is not available in the marketplace, or if it is available in the marketplace, it is not offered in the manner in which you are able to offer.
Thank you, sir. Being an entrepreneurship faculty, I have also observed that students sometimes present the idea which may not be practically possible. But I completely agree with you. We need to look for the practical possible solution, sir.
Precisely.
Thank you so much, sir. Another question here is, what is your advice to the entrepreneur who have failed and quit the business long time back? But now if they wish to come back to the entrepreneurship career, should they take that risk?
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. See, first of all, it is easier option to pull the rug, you what do you call it, as you kick the bucket and you say, okay, now I don't want anything to do with entrepreneurship. I get out and then do something, working for somebody, or do something else, because not necessarily that I become an entrepreneur, or join another company where there is a prime partner or a lead partner is there, join somebody as a junior partner, etc., etc. But it does not answer the larger question of an entrepreneurship, because as an entrepreneur, if you quit, please understand one thing, that you should not consider it as an anathema to quit as an entrepreneur and not come back as an entrepreneur once again, because it's like failing. A failing, as I say, a failure is a stepping stone to success. One need to, again, as I said, if you want to become successful, there is no easy mantra. You need to persevere. You need to self-regulate. Again, as I mentioned, you need to be disciplined about your spending, and you need to sort of understand your ecosystem or the market in which you're operating. So if you have perfected all these things, or if you have learned from your past mistakes, probably if it would have happened due to any one of these four, which you have not paid attention, if you pay those attention and sort of come back with a greater gusto, there is no reason why that person cannot succeed.
Thank you, sir. I think the question raised by one of the participants, that motivation can be taken as one of the way to go for the future entrepreneurship. And the last question here is, so what's your advice to those who are considering entrepreneurial endeavors in the COVID-19 crisis?
It's a very different type of an answer that I would like to give. COVID-19 has really changed the market equations, the equations for humanity, I would say. Why I say market equations? Because I remember Jack Ma saying when COVID was in full swing, I'm talking in terms of the initial days, initial 1-2 months or something like that. They said, don't try to plan and sort of do a foresight budget or a forecast budget for the next year. He said, you try to stay alive. Okay, because only when you stay alive, you can probably think in terms of planning or forecasting your future budgets, etc., etc. So according to me, in COVID-19 times, one need to be very, very careful in terms of making yourself relevant and making yourself alive. That's the most important thing according to me. Number two, to answer your specific question in terms of the fact that what type of businesses, I think you said what type of business, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. COVID-19, the physical touch and feel is going to be a very long time before it comes back to the normalcy as it existed pre-COVID. So everything is going to be online, contactless, cashless methodology, etc., etc. So those businesses which has got a substantial bias in terms of online, or maybe in these elements which I've highlighted to you, have a very fair chance of surviving and also prospering. So by the same token, one may say, what happens if there is a contact businesses? Yes, they will also survive, but they will find the going a little bit quite tough, because there will be a lot of regulations from the government, the authorities. They may enact to the view to make sure that social distancing norms will become rigidly followed. So in that case, the businesses may find it a bit difficult to do contact businesses, in the sense in terms of physical businesses. You know, people may not go to the malls to a great extent, although malls will be open, but they will have to follow rigorously what is being enunciated or maybe promulgated by the authorities in terms of following all these things. So those things will have a cost. So how many people will be able to pay additional costs for doing all the social distancing? So a better thing would be to look at online businesses for those entrepreneurs, and also understand one thing very clearly. On online businesses, online business rather, will not involve huge amount of cash outlay, I would say. You must have seen the example of Estonia I mentioned to you. Do you know that the country has really galloped its position? I think prior to seeing the video myself just about a week or 10 days ago, I was not even aware of where this Estonia existed. Sorry to say this, I'm willing to admit my ignorance on that. But when I went through the video, I was simply startled. So they are already ahead of the pack. And this is not something that Estonia is doing it now. They have done it already 10, 15 years ago. Now how much of head start that they have got over the other countries? It's for anybody to see.
Thank you, sir. And I can also analyze the example shared by you that yes, change is very important. So with COVID-19, every business also need to change with their opportunities. So there is one more last question posted by,
Please.
so I would like to your address on that. To what extent the money spent in the research and innovation can help the entrepreneur to be successful?
It's a very, very important this point that you have raised. Without research and innovation, I think entrepreneurship will not succeed. I'll tell you why. Because research innovation only goes to show that there is, quote unquote, there is a method to madness, if that can be said. I said it in a very dramatic way, in the sense that an entrepreneur embarks on a project only after doing a thorough research, and he tries to innovate a product because he or she has understood the ecosystem, understood what is required in the market and what the customer wants. So backed by these hard efforts, the effort to step into the market really happens. Okay, so if that is not being sort of laid stress upon adequately, I think you are nowhere. So it's very important that you have to have a substantial emphasis on research and thereafter innovation occurs.
Thank you, sir. Those were the queries raised by the participants. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
most of has got the answers that we had before starting of this session. So now here we come to the end of this session. Before that, sir, I would like to say thank you so much, sir. You have given us a great insight. I will say that great information about the entrepreneurship examples in the Estonia country that we were not even aware about. So here we come to the end. Uh, every activity involves a lot of efforts, planning, and commitment. Even entrepreneurship is one of them. Now, may I invite Dr. Padma, Ms. Padma ma'am, to propose a word of thanks.
Good morning, one and all. As all things come to an end in life, so is the webinar. On behalf of Department of Business Studies, Ibra College of Technology, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on strategies for an entrepreneurial career. At the outset, I thank our guest speaker and resource person, Mr. P. Chandrasekhar, who blessed us with his presence and took out valuable time of his busy schedule. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, sir. More recent research suggests that some people become entrepreneurs not because they have distinct traits, but because they perceive situations and opportunities differently than others perceive them. Your insights are useful for all in making a platform on entrepreneurship. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to you for the sparkling speech, sir. Thank you once again. We are thankful to our college administration and head of department, Dr. Habiba Almugeri, and head of sections for this wonderful opportunity. A special thanks to the organizing committee for their unflinching support and coordination. Our heartfelt thanks to all our staff members for the active participation. With these warm words and a kind message, we move to the end of today's webinar. Thank you.
I have to say closing words on this. May I, please?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, please.
Okay, for me, speaking to the teaching faculty here was an experience by itself. Of course, it is not a very interactive in the sense that you don't get to see the people live, but nevertheless, for me, it was a very great, enriching experience. And for which I'm really, really thankful and grateful to each one of you. I think I am also not very tech savvy, but I think Mr. Gino did a very splendid job in terms of educating me on that particular area. And I'm also thankful to Dr. Nitya for giving me an opportunity to talk to all of you. And post the end of the session, I think I will share my presentation in the PDF form to her so that it can be distributed to the others too.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
So we would like to present our certificate of appreciation to you on behalf of Ibra College of Technology. Thank you so much, sir. We will be looking forward for more insight in the near future as well.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate very much. Thank you. God bless. Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day, sir.
You too, ma'am. Thanks. Bye.